George Floyd, a black man, was murdered by the Minneapolis police on May 25th, 2020. He was pinned to the ground, handcuffed, and deliberately suffocated, forcing him to meet his untimely demise at the young age of 46 years old. Bystanders who were walking by quickly took out their cell phones to record. This 9-minute video went viral once it was posted on the internet. Shortly thereafter, hundreds of protests against racial injustices sprung from more than 150 American cities. Nothing like that has ever been seen since the civil rights movement of the 60s. And then President Donald Trump activated the National Guard in 21 states. And some protests led into destructive riots, leading to June 1st, 2020, when Obama released a statement on his personal website. His statement titled, "How to Make This Moment a Turning Point for Real Change." The purpose of the statement was to express his sentiments about the protests, his distaste for the riots, his hope for the future generations of activists, all while providing insight on how to handle this problem correctly and educating about government standings.
In the text How to Make This Moment the Turning Point for Real Change, Obama calls out to the younger generation to deliver a message on how they should work to bring about change in their communities without creating violent movements. Obama starts his conversation by directly addressing the recent events surrounding the killing of George Floyd and other lasting problems of unequal justice, and how the American people are concerned with being able to bring about real change to their communities. He goes on to say that the responsibility of shaping strategies to bring about change that best fit these trying times falls upon the younger generation of activists. Obama then communicates to the audience that he believes there are lessons to be learned from examining the past to bring about change. By describing how millions of people are taking action in response to killings and unrelenting social injustice, the reader feels a sense of importance and urgency in the message being delivered by the author. He employs the use of pathos by drawing in the attention's emotions with phrases like "take to the streets," raise their voices, ongoing problems, and killing. His word choice creates a more impactful introduction that grabs the attention of readers. In the next two paragraphs, Obama picks apart the two different groups of protesters in order to explain one of the lessons that should be taken away from these past protests. The first group represents the peaceful, responsible protesters who are fed up with the decades of failure to reform police practices and the criminal justice system. Obama makes the reader empathize with this group by saying that their efforts and frustrations are genuine, and that because of their proper forms of protest, they deserve our respect, support, and not condemnation. The second group that Obama details are the minority of violent protesters that detract from the large cause. This group operates out of anger and uses violence as a weapon against authority. Obama appeals to the reader's pathos once again, but this time in a negative light towards this group by describing a personal anecdote where he tells a story where an elderly woman being interviewed describes how her only store in her neighborhood was trashed by violent protesting. This both pulls at the reader's heartstrings, making them empathize with the wrongdoing to the old lady and to the neighborhood, but also tries to bring about a displeasure to the audience, possibly invigorating Obama's earlier call to action in youthful activists. Obama ends this section by claiming that if we want our social justice system and society to function on a higher ethical code, then we need not execute, rationalize, or participate in violence, driving a clear message to the audience on his stance of what type of protesting is needed. Obama next employs the use of rhetorical rebuttal in order to disprove the idea that voting and electoral participation do not work in ending the mistreatment of ethnic people in our criminal justice system, and that not only protest and direct action offer any effective change. Obama notes that protests are important in raising public awareness, but does not bring about change in politics, which is what would bring about change in the justice system. Obama looks into the reason for why this idea is believed by so many, in which he says that we tend to focus more on the federal level of politics and not so much the state and local levels, which is where the actual change in communities can be made, um, especially by groups of assembled people who are united against criminal injustice. His tone is informative and somber as he works to educate his audience while also trying to direct their attention toward the effective solution of voting and participation in elections as a way to fix social injustice.
Within the latter portion of President Obama's piece, he goes on to describe, with discontentment, the internal processes of the local and state governments, creating a sense of agitation in his writing. The audience can definitely feel this agitation. His distinct word choice and decision to employ italicized words, these purposeful stresses in writing, pack a meaningful punch. Phrases such as the pitifully low voter turnout, how we have to mobilize awareness, make demands for criminal justice, and I think is actually the most effective, how he doesn't want elected officials to just offer lip service. The rest of the examples are swaying and informative of his tone, but specifically the inclusion of lip service is especially hard-hitting because of its informal connotation. Obama here is speaking directly to the American people and is clearly fed up. He doesn't want elected officials promising things they don't want to follow through with. He doesn't have time for their lip service. That's a powerful inclusion right there, I think, because of how informal it is, and it's a good way to sustain a mood. Among other rhetorical strategies, the way in which the piece is written is rather curt and punctual. The sentences are short but meaningful, creating a sense of no-nonsense and urgency. He effectively lists out several strategies throughout the entire paper, but in the last section he lists off hypothetical strategies for what differing cities might have to do to achieve similar outcomes. While I don't believe these hypothetical strategies should be defined as hypothetical claims, they do help to create this legitimate sense of hopefulness within the piece, as Obama's established ethos provides stability and structure for the ideas that he posits. If there's anyone to speak on black violence from a place of miseducation, it's definitely not Barack Obama. This hopefulness carries into the conclusion of the piece when Obama acknowledges the bleak reality that Americans currently find themselves in, and uses this sort of somber word choice to acknowledge this bleakness, and then flips it upside down and turns it into a call to action by commenting on his own emotions of joy when thinking about the future generations of activism. He finally ends the piece with, "Let's get to work," a very forward and inclusive call to action. Let's get to work. We should get to work. We all need to do this thing together. We need to be united in our getting to work. Ultimately, the second half of how to make this a turning point for real change is serious in its tone, aiming to instill within its audience a real sense of hopefulness for the future and urgency to change what needs to be changed.